Now, you may or may not know, but Spider-Man Remastered, aka Spider-Man for the PS4, PS5 and PC, was one of my favourite games of all time. A game that I 100% completed several times over, played New Game Plus, basically milked the game for all it was worth because it was such an enjoyable experience for me. So when I heard that Miles Morales was coming to PC, I was so excited to finally get my hands on it. But it took me a long time before I really felt that I had the time and energy to dedicate to it. I don't know what it was. I think part of me was just worried that for how much I loved Remastered, that Miles Morales was going to, even if it was still an 8 out of 10 experience, was still going to falter slightly to follow up to the incredible experience that I had the first time around. Well, if that was the case, my worries were completely misplaced, as Miles Morales is just as incredible an experience as the first game. With the story, while it didn't quite have the heavy hits that the first story's experience had, I felt like it might have been just a better overall experience with the writing, as the first game was trying so much to catch you up on all these different aspects of, what you expect from the status quo of Spider-Man, whereas it felt like getting to introduce all these different concepts with Miles Morales was a little bit more natural this time around. That might just be me because I've played the first game so many times at this point, but I really was quite engaged throughout Miles Morales. But thankfully, when it came to both games, their stories ensured that even though I spent what must have been like 9 hours on Miles Morales, both it and Remastered were easy to get through and barely felt like that. And it felt more like I'd spent 6 hours on the game. In fact, I was ready to talk about how, oh man, the game was quite short, but when I realised how much time I'd actually sunk into the experience, I was kind of amazed. The Insomniac Spider-Man games are so much fun, where there's always something going on, that it makes it feel like no time at all has passed. It's really a giant breeze to play through. On the gameplay front, a lot of what made Spider-Man work is carried over into Miles Morales. Web swinging is so much fun that I will never fast travel unless I'm forced to by the game. Like, an objective could be on the complete opposite end of the map, and I'm just seeing that as an excuse to swing to my heart's content, web zipping to different platforms, and just having a great old time. With combat, we do have a few more tricks up our sleeve now, as it feels instead of relying as much on web gadgets, Miles himself has several other tools at his disposal, such as Miles' bioelectricity, which ends up being called stuff like these Venom moves. Nothing to do with the symbiote though. And that ends up creating a whole new dimension to the gameplay on its own. Suddenly now some enemies you're gonna go because it slots so seamlessly in. Sure, you can do the old school thing of yanking away a weapon from an opponent, but you could just as easily just set up so that you have enough electricity for a few of these Venom attacks, which will just absolutely stun a whole bunch of opponents once you've got it upgraded. I can't say with 100% certainty, but I'm pretty sure it made combat much more fluid than in Spider-Man Remastered. I swear I remember Spider-Man Remastered being a little bit more samey, not that I complained too much about that, but it felt like Miles Morales was trying to create a more flowing combat system where you could just try different things and everything was far more dynamic and bombastic. Not only that, but I gotta tell you, the stealth sections have been majorly upgraded from the first game. The stealth sections had a little bit of fun in that it was always kind of cool to be sneaking around, but they did majorly slow down the pace compared to the rest of the game. But one mechanic from Miles Morales completely changed the experience for me, that being turning invisible. Because you can do that, I had a great time and it really changed how I played the game. In the regular Spider-Man game, I would, have to take it carefully because if I got caught, that was it. But I could take a little bit more risk when going. Sure, I'd still try to take it a little slow, try to pick off where I could, but if I was thinking, okay, I can't wait all day because they're all clustered together, I could rush in, attack someone, turn invisible, scoot away, and then leave it at that. Wait for them to decide, oh, must have been the wind. And then I just swoop on in and take out the rest of them. It made the stealth section so much more enjoyable because I knew I could just be far more fast-paced about it. I don't think it's such an upgrade to stop me from enjoying Spider-Man Remastered if I were to revisit that, but these little quality of life improvements make Miles Morales an absolute joy to play. Once again though, the game itself wasn't necessarily that challenging to me once I figured out what I was doing. You know, sometimes there were little bits where I was like, wait, what am I doing? Oh, and I just get slapped into the wall. But for the most part, you know, I was getting through the game without too much difficulty. I'm no doubt on future replays going to be cranking up that difficulty level, and trust me, this game is going to get the same treatment from me that Spider-Man Remastered got, where I'm going to be 100%ing it, playing New Game Plus, playing through the game again on the top difficulty, going to try to get as many, if not all of the achievements. It's going to be a fun time for me, and I can already tell that I'm quite a bit of the way there, so I don't think it's going to take too much more to get that 100% completion. Visually, of course, the game looks great. There was a lot of weird rendering issues whenever I had DLSS on, so I just had to turn it off. But the game ran wonderfully, I had ray tracing on, the game, to me at least, ran exceptionally well, despite how high I'd cranked all the settings. Now, it wasn't an experience that made me go, wow, look at the graphics, but it was a very pretty game nonetheless. I think the only thing that off the top of my head is a real detraction from the game is maybe that the unlockables aren't as intriguing to me. I'm not as crazy hyped about unlocking all the different spider suits. I mean, I'm still gonna, they still look cool, but I believe this is just down to the familiarity I have with Peter Parker's Spider-Man versus Miles Morales' Spider-Man, because if you wanted me to pick out like some cool Miles Morales suits, there's a few that are aesthetically cool, and then I might go, oh look, there's the one from Into the Spider-Verse. Whereas, you know, the ones for Peter Parker have stuff like Spidey armor, where one of them is clearly a reference to the PS1 Spider-Man game. One is a reference to the Sam Raimi trilogy. That's, you know, that one has like, you know, decades and decades of like stuff that's built off of, whereas Miles Morales has obviously not been around quite as long. But again, that is me more comparing like a silver medal to a gold medal. Like, it's still silver. It's still incredibly good, and it's honestly extremely nitpicky from me because the game is still an absolute blast to play. And it's a highly, highly recommended experience. I know Spider-Man 2 is now on PC as well, but I promised myself that I wasn't going to play Spider-Man 2 until I finally finished Miles Morales, and I'm so glad that I did, because this was a must-play experience for me. I loved Spider-Man Remastered on PS4, PS5, and PC, and if you enjoyed that game, I gotta tell you, you need to try out Miles Morales for yourself if you haven't already. It's worth swinging through, saving Harlem as your new friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And I cannot wait to come back to you with my review for Spider-Man 2 once I've played that experience. Genuinely, this might be... If Spider-Man 2 is good, this might be my favourite trilogy of video games. And that's saying a lot. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.